So Games Workshop's confirmed that there's another big preview for Warhammer 40K coming next week. Let's talk about their hints and vibes to the reveal shows, and what looks like the most likely bets for Warhammer 40K. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking 40k reveals and what's going to be coming in the future for them, discussing Games Workshop's next tease preview show, where it sounds like there's going to be two of them happening next week, one of them on Thursday for Age of Sigmar, and one of them on Saturday aimed at Warhammer 40k, and a few of their other more grimdark style game modes. This time these previews are associated with Games Workshop's Dallas Open event. They've shown us the tournament calendar a fair while away now. I was strongly suspecting that there'd be something alongside the Dallas Open. They often like to tie in their preview shows and reveals alongside having a whole bunch of people together to play the game. As per normal, it'll be streamed on Twitch, and you can also find the link via Warhammer Community as well, so not really too hard to see the stream as it happens. We'll get onto timings for the two reveal shows in just a second, but there's basically one on the 16th to 17th of the month for Age of Sigmar, depending on where you are around the world, and then one on the 18th for the 40k era settings, so that's 40k, Necromunda, Heresy, and Legions Imperialis, though no kill team this time. I guess they've kind of got rather ahead of themselves, given that it's probably still quite a long time till the Votan and the Brood Brothers release. It seems that with these reveal shows, they've got a bit of a new format going on. Last time it was all a bit pre-recorded with a new central presenter, more having sort of design discussions with people who made the things happen, and while the style did feel like fairly cool and polished and everything, it was a bit annoying that they basically only showed us a couple of moving glimpses pretty much of the models that they were showing off, which really does defeat the point, as that's kind of all we're really here to see. Lore chatter and general ethos of trying to make miniature games is all well and interesting, but I certainly felt that for the last one they could have done with a lot more screen time devoted to more still shots of the models, as they were doing with their maybe slightly more rough and ready ones before. Obviously my main focus is going to be on the 40k one, as I'm all about that on this channel, but the Age of Sigmar one is probably going to have a whole load of interesting stuff too, and we'll get onto that. It looks like the 40k one will be on the 18th of May, airing at 6:45 UK time, equating to 12:45 US Central Time, or far less sociable time at 3:45 AM over in Australia. I must admit I'm certainly not averse to having these preview shows go out in an actual sociable time here in the UK. I do feel like there have been a fair few too many 3am and 4am starts for me in the past. While we're on the subject of big 40k models, I thought I'd just briefly mention the channel's giveaway for June will be for a pair of Warhound Titans. You can enter either for free on social media or by supporting the channel on Patreon, and I'll cover this a bit more at the end of the video, so check back then if you want a bit more of a thorough overview of how to enter for them. Let's get on to possibilities for the Warhammer 40k reveals though, and I feel like given Games Workshop's Codex roadmap, the next two do seem like they're kind of obvious for this. I don't know if they're going to expand their roadmap to a bit further down the line, but certainly the first two codexes that they had built for summer were Adepta Sororitas and Genestealer Cult, and now we know that the Chaos Space Marines are releasing in May. That was the last one that they had earmarked for spring. My first guess for these ones will be that we'll get the Codex reveals for both of these, so we'll be getting a look for the cover art of them. When they have revealed codexes in the past, they've occasionally given us a few snippets of rules teasers, maybe some detachment names or detachment rules just to whet our appetite. And if they are showing off these books, then they will show off the launch models for them, maybe giving us a better idea as to whether or not either of these factions are getting a big model release with multiple kits and units, or perhaps slightly more likely an individual character release. It seems to go one way or the other with Games Workshop releases these days. Somewhere between 1 or 3 characters, or really quite a massive range with lots of kits updated, and not really too much in between. The other questions would be discount boxes that we might get for the factions. It seems that come 2024, literally every single codex that's come out has also come alongside a launch battle force. We had the Deathwing one for the Dark Angels, the Kroot one for the Tau, the Orcs and Custodies each had one alongside their character release, and it seems that the Chaos Space Marines got not one but 2, alongside 2 different Chaos Lords. Games Workshop using the new characters as another bonus selling point for really quite a big box of models that's discounted compared with what they normally sell them for individually. Unless they're going down the Necron and Abmech route of these, there's a pretty reasonable chance that both of these could get discount boxes, or even I guess some sort of versus box set, as we had Sisters versus Drukhari in the past, or Genestealers versus Custodes. The thing that's almost guaranteed though, given 10th edition, is that they're probably going to get their Combat Patrol boxes redone. I'm not sure that's necessarily going to be a positive for either of these factions, to be honest. I know they surprised us with the Adeptus Custodes one actually being quite decent after the redo, but I feel like it's highly odds on that the Genestealer Cult Combat Patrol is probably going to be a worse deal than it was before, and I'm maybe not too optimistic about the Battle Sisters either. Moving on to more specific possibilities for the factions, the Sisters maybe seem like the one that might be a bit easier to go for. We have had a couple of rumour engines that could potentially be a Sisters miniature. The shattered bit of terrain on the right clearly has their sort of fleur-de-lis sort of logo there. Given that it's some broken terrain, really doesn't look like it's a terrain piece, far more likely to be a scenic base, perhaps for a character miniature, seeing as they often tend to get those. And we also have these interesting pennant parchment things. These ones are really quite close to the ones that you get on Celestine and to Gemini Superior, though are also quite close to the Blood Angels in fairness as well. Certainly could be Sisters of Battle with, say, a jump pack Canoness, which there seems to be a rumour going around about. Though it definitely could be resculpted Blood Angels, maybe a Sanguinor or Asterath. They both have those sort of same parchments themselves. Otherwise, in terms of what the Sisters need, they do need a few of their fine cast resin miniatures updating if they're going to stay around. They had Arco-Flagellants remade, but the Crusaders and Death Cult Assassins didn't get any sort of redo. Given Games Workshop really seems to be cutting out any resin kits, if you want these units to stay around, hopefully Games Workshop might well release a plastic kit for them, even if I must admit they aren't usually the units that make people get into Sister Battle for themselves. Otherwise, for Genestealer Cults, I'd be kind of surprised if they got an enormous model release, but on the other hand, if they add yet more characters to the faction, I feel like that's something that they're already pretty oversaturated with, perhaps having more of those than they really need. I guess the model release that we do know is coming for them is this Brood Brothers kill team that they have coming alongside the Leagues of Votan miniatures. This one's basically the newer version of the Cadian shock troops with an upgrade sprue for icons, shock maws, and other bits and bobs. I'm genuinely not sure if this one's going to be used for guard allies as a bit of a count-as to give a bit of Genestealer Cult spice and flavour to other datasheets, though I think that it's pretty possible that it gets an individual datasheet of its own in the Codex, just because there is really quite a lot of gear here that you don't get on more standard guardsmen, things like shotguns, or that shock maw type thing, or the medic outside of Deathcore of Krieg type units. Hopefully they do get something else for their release, though, alongside just the upgrade sprue for the Cadian shock troops that is all this is, really. And again, I'm really hoping that they don't ruin the combat patrol too badly. It is the thing that's been the difference between making them a very, very expensive faction to collect versus one that's actually really not too bad, just due to having multiple copies of that being very viable to build up the entire core of your force. Otherwise, on the agenda for summer, there's the Mystery Codex. There's a good chance that Games Workshop could at least give us the identity of this at this preview, though given that we've already got 2 codexes announced already, there is also a reasonable chance that they just literally focus on Sororitas and Genestealer Cult and then leave this for the next one whenever that might be. This one was also earmarked for summer, and this one seems to have just driven an endless amount of speculation all year, so I guess a clever marketing move on Games Workshop's part there, I guess. The slightly silly thing is that they could still just turn around and it just turns out to be one of the many, many other factions that haven't got a codex yet. They haven't promised us anything with this, though the internet generally seems to feel that it's something a bit more out of the ordinary, otherwise why hide it? Initially there were loads of people speculating that it could have been Emperor's Children, though it seems like that's not going to be the case now. Given Games Workshop's other hints, it sounds like their codex is going to be later in 10th, or maybe even the launch faction of 11th if it's beyond that. I'd go late 10th if I had to put money on it though, maybe in a sort of equivalent to when World Eaters or Votan came out for 9th. Since we got the leaked page from Games Workshop's printing factory though, the general speculation has been that the Mystery Codex is going to be Agents of the Imperium. I guess admittedly that will be something out of the ordinary and might fit with the whole redacted type thing. Redacted by order of the Inquisition, no doubt, unless this just turns out to be another complete rumour. It does look like the book is coming at some point, but we don't know it's necessarily this one. In any case, for Agents of the Imperium speculation, I think it'd be really nice if they actually just gave them a proper solo detachment. For some reason they didn't have one in the index, even just to give them something functional. So if you wanted to make a weird hodgepodge of Imperial agents with breachers, voidsmen, exaction squads and the like, you could actually have some better rules to fill them versus the sort of patch rules that we got from the last balanced data slate, saying that you could have filled an army of them, you just skipped the pick detachment sort of step. I'd really quite like to see a fun Inquisition themed sort of army. It probably wouldn't be all that strong, but I think that's not really expected out of these guys. The other thing that I've seen lots of people speculating about is whether or not they're planning to roll in Deathwatch into this in some way. Again, absolute pure speculation at this point, but I feel like it might be the sort of thing that Games Workshop could do. Deathwatch is by far the least played Warhammer 40k faction these days. it was kind of tied with Harlequins, and they put Harlequins into the Eldari Codex. Even if they did keep the rules and setup for Deathwatch exactly the same, actually putting them in the same book as Agents of the Imperium might not be the worst idea in the world. They do operate as the anti-Xenos wing of the Inquisition pretty much, and if they gave some sort of cool allied rules that meant that you could fill Deathwatch kill teams alongside other armies, that perhaps tends to feel like more of their more classic role in the lore as opposed to going toe-to-toe with other entire armies. I'm certainly not sure that Deathwatch players would necessarily be happy about that if it happened, and maybe it's not even likely, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Otherwise, if they are sticking to their one model release per codex type of thing that they've had going on, they do still have a few Inquisitors in resin to remake. One of those would seem like the obvious choice for coming alongside an Agents of the Imperium type book. They redid the Henchmen for Kill Team last year, and I guess that would leave us with either Inquisitor Kotiaz or Inquisitor Karamazov, or I guess maybe just a standard generic Inquisitor model, all of which could do with plastic updates at some point. I do think that just a generic Inquisitor model would be really quite a fun one. I suppose they could even release that kind of fun, cowled limited edition one with the funky sword if they wanted. It would be quite fun to see him come back as his own thing. I think there will be a good chance that it could be Kotiaz as well, though. He featured very heavily in the teaser at the end of the Arcs of Omen series, a campaign book series that was very closely tied to character miniatures getting new models. It featured Dante and Azrael, both of which got a new Primaris version, plus of course Lionel Johnson, Farsight and Angron. And one of the ending teasers at the end of the series featured Kotiaz really quite specifically, with the Inquisition planning to investigate the Dark Angels and such. It felt a bit out of place and unrelated, and definitely struck that it could be a model teaser from that alone. In any case, now I've gone down that rabbit hole far enough, watch it just turn out to be Chaos Demons or Drukhari or something. Finally, for 40k possibilities, I guess we might get some sort of teasers of a new 40k mission deck. I suspect that one of these is probably going to come around about a year after the edition launch. If they follow previous chapter approved type patterns, then they'll probably do a new mission deck to replace Leviathan in the same sort of way as they updated the mission packs before. I think there's at least a fair possibility that this could come with the big balanced data slate that they said they're doing in summer. I guess we'll be looking maybe sometime around August time for that. I strongly suspect that it might have a bigger shake-up for 40k than most, maybe messing around with some core rules and things, plus all the standard balance stuff, and apparently the big update for AdMech to make them less bad. I'd guess that that's probably going to be a bit far out for this preview though. If they keep up a rate of something like one a month, then we might have 2 more for them to go at before we get to this sort of thing. I don't suspect that they'd release it very far ahead with a massive lead time for this sort of rules update. Otherwise, and looking beyond 40k, there should be some interesting stuff coming from the other settings. Necromunda had an interesting enough teaser last time, delving into Necromunda's darker side, panning the camera underground and focusing on a locked vault door. I've got no doubt that people will be doing some expeditions down into the underhives and deeper than that to uncover all sorts of sinister horrors. The Horus Heresy teaser last time was really quite specific. There's going to be Mechanicum as probably the next major army they're going to be revealing for the Horus Heresy in plastic. So lots of cool battle automata and things that they already have in Forge World, making their transition into plastic. Should be some interesting and fun models there, I suppose. It'd be absolutely great if they could port some of those to give them some 40k rules and get 2 wins at once. But given that they've not been doing that with any of the other Heresy releases, and even deleted all of the Contemptor and Leviathan Dreadnoughts and things from 40k outside of Legends, it just doesn't seem to be the design direction Games Workshop are going for these days, sadly. Kind of a shame, as I feel like AdMech players in 40k would really quite like some fun variant battle automata. The Castellan robots do maybe feel a bit lonely with only them to go at for the Cybernetica cohort. Finally, for Legions Imperialis, this one is maybe the biggest one that they've got lots of stuff to do if they want to. When they teased and launched it, they did say they'd be doing some little Primarchs at some stage, so it'll be interesting to see what they look like in Super Small. And they said beyond the launch factions of Solar Auxilia, plus the Space Marines, they're going to be expanding to the other aspects of the Heresy era setting, so I guess at some point we can expect to see some little battle automata for the AdMech, maybe Custodes but in small, and potentially some faction-specific stuff for Legions maybe. Finally though, and while I do tend to keep the lens focused on 40k and everything for this channel, the Age of Sigmar launch is probably going to be the bigger one out of the 2 previews. They're billing this one as their Mortal Realms Reforged preview on the 16th of May in the US and just about into the 17th here in the UK at 1am. And this one's going to be their full reveal show for Skaven vs Stormcast in their launch box. It just fits too well with the Indomitus or the Leviathan launch to be anything else at this point really, We've seen the teasers for the miniatures that are coming out in it, a bunch of models previewed on Mondays. So far I think we've had Stormcast, New Prosecutors, Liberators and Reclusians. For the Skaven they've had Clan Rats, a Warlock Engineer and this Warpstone Jezzail type thing, sniping down some golden boys no doubt. Given their usual pattern of releasing new editions, this one should be the full reveal of the big launch box. Lots of miniature reveals for more Stormcast and Skaven I'm sure. And apparently at the event in Dallas and Warhammer World in the UK, they're going to have some demo games, so you can have some limited introductions to the new Age of Sigmar thing if you want to. For 40k it was kind of ridiculously slimmed down though, just 2 types of unit per side, and then only playing through a couple of turns with some slimmed down rules and not access to the full thing. Very much a teaser sort of thing of the game, and often people having to queue quite a long time to get access to that. Still though, if I get a chance I'll probably try and cover this one at the time as well. Always interesting enough to see what they're doing over in the fantasy setting, though I feel like my interest for that is more in the core models and things, more so than any in-depth rules and things for a game that I don't really play. In any case though, let me know your hopes and expectations for the next reveal show. Will it indeed be Sisters and Genestealer cults this time round? And what do you reckon that mystery codex will turn out to be? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Otherwise, as I talked briefly about earlier, I thought I'd just also use this one to talk about the Auspex Tactics channel giveaway for June, and this time round it's going to be one of titanic proportions, 2 of them to be specific, as this one's for 2 individual people to get 1 Warhound Titan of their choice, and given it's such a big investment type kit, maximal flexibility is preferred, so the 2 winners will be able to choose either the Imperial one or the Chaos one, and pick which 2 weapons they want to arm it with, whether it's Vulcan Mega Bolters, Plasma Blast Guns, or Turbo Lasers and things. As per normal for the channel giveaways, there's going to be 2 equal ways to enter. These will be links down in the video description. Either you can support the channel on Patreon for any amount. This one gets you automatic entry each and every month, and it is what allows me to keep on making these videos quite so regularly. Or alternatively, you can choose to support the channel on social media completely for free. And to do that, you do each of these 3 actions. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page, and then to actually be entered for the draw, then respond to the post that appears on the 1st of June for the giveaway. It appears at midnight UK time, and reply to that with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date handwritten within the same photo. That bit's just to deter Facebook bots and spammers and make sure that the prizes go to real people. Otherwise, after that, I put all the entries equally into a random number generator, whether they're Patreons or Facebook entries, pick out the 2 winners, and I'll be announcing those on the channel update video on YouTube on the 4th of June. After that, I'll contact the winners and ask you your choices for the Titans and the guns that they're armed with, and then we'll just be waiting on Games Workshop to deliver them before I post them to you. Should be exciting enough, and it looks like there'll be a couple more god engines stomping their way across the battlefields across the world. Feel free to check out the links in the video description for those, and there'll be something of similar sort of scale each and every month. I guess if we do wind up with big Battle Force box sets for Sisters and Genestealer Cult, that might be the July one. In any case, let me know what you think about the previews coming up though. Look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas down in the comments, and feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly cover any news or reveals that we get in a similar format at the time. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep these videos coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.